trainers. Being a dog trainer is kind of like being a couples counselor. You're trying to build a relationship and improve communication. But as with most couples counseling, people usually wait to seek out your advice until problems have escalated way beyond control, and often when they're at the breaking point. Dog training is way more intense than I anticipated because I'm really training the humans, not the dogs. I love helping frustrated owners see the world from their dog's point of view. My specialty is the dogs that are considered reactive. So we're talking dogs that are sensitive, worried about people, dogs, crazy stuff in the environment, which is kind of a daily thing in San Francisco. My favorite dogs, they're the ones that actually bite people. Because let me tell you, dogs do not fight overnight. Dogs are social. They actually really want to avoid conflict. And they learn to bite as a coping strategy because often they've been stressed out time and time again and they don't know how else to cope. Based on my upbringing, I know really what that looks like. So yesterday I broke up with a client because I was unable to implement his training request. And it was too bad because I liked him, and I liked the dog, and we also had a mutual friend in common, so it made it super awkward. And really, compared to most of my clients, his dog is easy. She barks. She barks because she's frustrated. She barks for attention. She barks for communication. And he's not a very clear communicator, and truth be told, he's one of those 20-something Google kids that travels for work and does jobs that I don't even know what he does. And so he's never home. And so she's frustrated, and I'm frustrated. And every time I see him, he's like, I want her to be patient. Okay, let me tell you, a Chihuahua Pitbull mix was never bred for patience. And I'm not patient either. I don't take no for an answer. I'm really loud. And his dog actually makes total sense to me. When I was growing up, the joke was that my adopted parents went to the Humane Society to get a kitten, but they got a mountain lion instead. They were always asking me, why do you have to talk so much? When we went on road trips when I was a kid, my dad actually paid me to be quiet. $1 for every 50 minutes. And my mother and I had epic battles because I would not back down from my truth. To her credit, on her deathbed, my adopted mother admitted she never knew how to love me. And that hurt, but it saved me years of therapy. But in my 30s, I started feeling just icky about myself. I was too loud, too big, too intense, too much. But then I met my birth parents. And oh my God, lo and behold, I am nothing but the product of my mother and my father. They are bigger than life individuals, huge, gigantic. After I met them, the visual image in my head was that a cherry bomb mated with a firecracker. This never should have happened. They were also really flashy dressers. We're talking like a pimp mated with a drag queen. I didn't inherit those traits. And they were big, they were tall. And when they looked at me, they're like, why are you so tiny? So I was essentially the product of a one-night stand in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, 1972. Each of my parents went on to have 3 kids of their own. And I met my mom once and she freaked out and it was too hard and she went away. But my dad lived across the Golden Gate Bridge in Tiburon. And my dad was the bee's knees. Actually, both my parents moved to San Francisco after they parted ways in 1974. When I learned that, I felt like I was a penguin that was like just kind of going back to where my ancestors came from. At one point in her life, my mom lived on Waller at Cole. I lived on Cole at Waller. And my adopted family did their best to make me into their image. But in the end, all they did was accentuate my genetics. So now I consider myself a pearl, take a bunch of dust and keep covering it and get something pretty. When I met my biological cousins, I remember them apologizing and telling me, all we do is eat, drink, and process. I hope that'll be okay. And that's when I kind of knew I found my people. I spent 7 years hanging out with my birth dad. He was really awesome. He died unexpectedly in 2015. Of all the stories he told me, the one that I loved the most was when he would say he never knew if he should laugh or cry when I lost my temper because I looked so much like his mom when she yelled at him when she was mad at him. He was the first person who saw me for who I really was, and he accepted and celebrated me because of my nature, not despite it. He loved that I was fierce and focused, and I fought for my truth. And every time I go back to Cape Cod, I inevitably make friends with someone that my grandmother knew, and then they cry, and they tell me I'm the spitting image of my grandmother. So when people tell me, I just want my dog to be quiet. I just want him to settle. I can't do it anymore. I got paid for being quiet, and it didn't work. Because as it turned out, my adopted parents did adopt a kitten at the Humane Society. But because they constantly told me to be quiet, they created a mountain lion. Hear me roar.